Welcome everyone to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, the Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3 Jimmy. It is Wednesday, February 28th, 2024. And Jimmy, if it's Wednesday night,
It's certainly Black Men Speak. So let's give a shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music, and also to Forest Films in our own studio for our virtual studio here. And also, Tom, if you haven't already, I'm going to remind everyone to please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and then spread the word. If you're here watching tonight, invite a friend or a family member to come watch with you. And then certainly if you're watching the show after the show, then take the link and spread it to your social media so others can enjoy the content also as we attempt to grow this show in 2024.
yes, sir. So, Jimmy, let's go ahead and get started. Of course, we're going to start out with our birthdays for this week, and we've got a couple of folks that I think that everyone should probably
So,
know.
Tom, before we get started,
Go ahead.
let me give a quick rundown of what we're going to cover in the show tonight. So we have the birthdays and what other stories we're covering,
All right.
just so people know.
All right, that sounds like a good idea. We're going to start out, of course, with our birthdays this week. Interesting story. I think we may have covered this last year, but there was a big brouhaha when Don Lemon ended up leaving CNN last year. But he's finally made a settlement with his former employer.
Yeah,
We're going to talk about that. He's got 24
pretty well.
Smile. A great prodigy at Fisk University, Jimmy, makes history just recently, and of course, a little bit more black girl magic to share with everyone, and of course, a Black History Month special. We're going to talk briefly about 5 of the oldest Black-owned businesses that are still in operational. VC funding, has plummeted quite a bit since
Yes, it is.
of course, when everyone made these commitments after the George Floyd murder. And then, Jimmy, we're going to talk about something that's kind of been in the sports news for those of you who follow sports. Cam Newton, he is from Atlanta, and he invests a lot of time with young folks trying to develop them, and got into a scuffle this past week that was pretty interesting. Caught it on tape, went viral. We're going to talk about some of the implications of that.
Okay, well, let's get started. Let's do what we do best, Tom.
All right. So we got a couple of birthdays this week that we're going to share with you. So if you got a birthday at the end of February or the beginning of March, you might share a birthday with these few folks. Jimmy, you might remember this beautiful and talented young lady from back in the day, Jimmy, the lovely and talented Stephanie Mills. For those of you,
Singers, the Wiz.
Exactly.
My very first Broadway show was the Wiz, and she was a star of it at that time. So I know I'm dating myself, but outstanding singer, actress.
Yeah, absolutely. A Grammy Award winner for the best R&B vocal performance, and had, I think, 3 gold and or platinum albums during her time, and probably one of my favorite songs back in the day by Stephanie Mills with "Sweet Sensation."
Yeah, okay.
So happy birthday, Stephanie. Today is
happy birthday, Miss Mills.
Absolutely. Happy birthday to you. For those sports fans out there, you may remember this face, except, in his younger days, he's in a jersey and he's kind of transformed his career. The great Chris Webber has a birthday on March the 1st. Former
NBA Fab 5.
Yeah, former NBA forward with the Sacramento Kings, but then also really became famous while he was a college student when he became part of that vaunted Michigan Fab 5.
Right.
He has a
freshman Fab 5.
Yeah, absolutely. So, they really transformed basketball and really fashion, back during that period of time, Jimmy. So, happy birthday.
And they made the one and done fashionable. I mean, it was almost unheard of up until that point. I mean, there was a few, but you'd have to be exceptional to be a one and done. And then plus, I think some of the NBA rules kind of required you to at least be a junior or sophomore. I don't know. I know the NFL is a junior, but I think the NBA tried to do a similar thing. But yeah, the Fab 5 kind of broke that rule and made the one and done more fashionable. Now it's just part of college basketball.
True, very true. So And last, someone who probably, unless you're, outside of the U.S., may not know this face, but a very talented young lady. Her name is Akuch Bold, who is a British actress, best recognized for her role as Kazima Tako in The Dumping Ground, but also, for those of you who are big film buffs, she played the wife of Idi Amin in The King of Scotland. Jimmy, I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but
I didn't see the King of Scotland. No, I didn't.
yeah, very, very interesting
Okay.
movie if you've not had a chance to see it. And she played the wife, a very talented young actress. And her birthday is on March the 2nd. So a happy birthday wish to you as well. So why don't we do this before we get started? Why don't we recognize some of the folks in our chat room?
Sure. Who do we have?
Give a shout out to everybody. Of course, we have Miss Bosie Scott. Good evening. Good to have you. I think she is in South America right now, but thank you for joining us. Miss Audrey K. Booker out of the DFW area. Thanks for joining us, cuz, and thanks for supporting us. And then Caleb, I'm not exactly sure who Caleb is, but thanks for joining us as well. Mr. Stokes, Mr. V, Vincent Stokes, what's going on, brother? And thank you for joining us this evening. And of course, brother Asar Al-Kabulon, or Uncle Asar.
Sorry. Okay.
Exactly. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm pretty sure that we'll have a couple of other folks who will join you. Miss Tanya Hall from KGGR Radio. Thank you for joining us this evening. Miss Dominique Vinings out of the Atlanta, Georgia area. Thank you for joining us this evening. And I'm pretty sure we'll have a couple of other folks who will be joining us. So we want y'all to participate. So as we go through some of our stories tonight, let us know your thoughts. If you have any questions, any shout outs, any punches you want to throw, feel free to do it. As Jimmy, of course, says, this is not just our show,
Feel free.
your show as well. So let's go ahead and get to a couple of follow-up stories that we have covered in the past, and then we'll get to our feature stories. In December, Jimmy, we talked briefly about the too early sad passing of former Dallas County DA Craig Watkins, who just passed in December of last year. And they did an autopsy. The cause of death was finally revealed, and it just showed that he died of natural causes in his sleep. But definitely a man who made a huge impact, not just in Texas, but throughout the world. He was elected as the first African-American DA in 2006, served until 2015. But while he was in office, he pushed very hard for exonerations, and his conviction and integrity unit became worldwide known for advocating for falsely imprisoned individuals who did decades of time for crimes that they did not commit. So even though he is not still here with us, the work that he did while he was in office, Jimmy, will last forever.
Plus, that work time cost him his job on re-election.
Yes.
Of course, most of you may know that I'm a far right-wing conservative Republican, and I generally don't make a point of voting for Democrats at all as a principle rule. But he is one that I would have voted for if I lived in Dallas County because of the work he did. I think he deserved, because he understood that justice was not just putting people in jail, but recognizing that when people are put in jail falsely, that the system that put them there need to work just as hard to get them out of jail. And so he one of the few prosecutors, Tom, that I've ever heard about or read about. I've only had the pleasure to meet him one time. He had a building next to one of my clients down on Martin Luther King Street, and where he was opening a T-shirt shop. But I was very sad that the folks of Dallas County didn't have the good sense to reelect this man, because the person they replaced him with was sorry and pitiful in every sense of the word. And I don't even think she completed a term.
She didn't.
Couldn't make it to work, had mental issues, and very, very shocked, sweetie. I was very shocked that the folks of Dallas would make such a bonehead decision about a man who did such good work.
Well, unfortunately, Jimmy, what it calls into question is, what the politics of the city, was at that time, Jimmy. And for what it's worth, someone who goes to fight for folks who were innocent but wrongly imprisoned. Actually didn't work in the favor of some folks who were in power at that time. So they have to figure out a way to get them out, because unfortunately what that does is it has implications for the folks who actually put those folks into prison wrongfully.
Yeah, Tom, if I'm falsely in prison, I would hope that there's a Craig out there to try to exonerate me when all options have failed. So without the work, I think there was like 32 men, 33 men in the end.
Yeah.
If Tom, if he hadn't been elected, they'd still be sitting in prison today.
Rotting.
They would have died in prison.
Rotting in prison for something that they did not do.
So, so we need more DAs like him, Tom, rather than ones that freely release criminals to victimize us and be parasites on society. Like I said, when the system takes away your freedom and they're wrong, we need people to do the right thing, Tom, and he was one of those people. So very sad to see him go, but even sad to that he wasn't reelected. And there's no telling how many more people are sitting in prison that maybe he could have gotten off and found that they were innocent and got him out of prison if he had been reelected.
Because at the end of the day, of course, the majority of these folks were black men, fathers.
All of them, I think.
Fathers, uncles, grandfathers.
Yeah.
And folks who could have been contributing, of course, towards their families and or the economy, Jimmy. But, you know, the folks at that time would prefer to see them, you know, rotting in jail.
Very unfortunate, Tom.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and go to our next story. I think this is another story that we, I think, talked about briefly last year. Of course, Don Lemon, former anchor for CNN, now has 24.5 million reasons to smile.
Boy, who says being a lemon head doesn't pay? man. Tom, I think I have more sense in my fingernail than Don Lemon or Lamont, how you pronounce his name, had. I mean, he was a bumblehead to me on CNN. I watched him purely for entertainment value. I didn't agree with his politics, obviously, but you know, he got rewarded handsomely for being fired for doing a terrible job. I mean, they moved him to the morning show on CNN, and the ratings continue to tank. So he didn't exactly make things better. And for absolute failing at his job to bring in ratings, he gets rewarded with $24 million.
Well, for what it's worth,
only in America.
For what it's worth, Jimmy, he was one of the top anchors at CNN at the time. And the reality of it is, you know, when we look at news and we look at media, most of what we see now is for more entertainment value than it is.
When you say the top anchor, what do you base that on? When you say top anchors, what do you base that on? Just the slot that he was in?
No, we're talking about in terms of his other compatriots on CNN. He was at that time one.
Yeah, the CNN as a whole, who pioneered cable news, is losing. I mean, I think they're in 13th place on cable, and they're falling behind Nickelodeon at night. So the whole network is failing. But on top of that, he's paid $5 million a year to bring in the ratings, which he couldn't do. And so he lost his primetime 7 o'clock slot on CNN. They moved him to the morning, thinking that maybe he could help the ratings there.
But Jimmy, that wasn't the reason he got fired. The reason he got fired was because of the statements, some of the statements that he made with some political candidates, and in particular because of the Me Too generation.
Tom, so you really think that a news station that's in 13th place, 14th place behind Nick at Night, who pays a guy $5 million to bring in ratings, who couldn't bring them in, wasn't fired?
Nick at Night, Jimmy. Now maybe it is now, but no, at that time he was not behind.
No, at that time, Tom, I don't know what it is now because I haven't paid attention in years. But back when he got fired, we can go check. CNN was like 14, 15 behind Nick at Night in the ratings on cable news. But anyway, Tom, he was paid to bring in ratings. So a person who could not bring in ratings in his nighttime slot, his daytime slot, I don't care what statements he made. If he brought the ratings in, they forgive it. It's all about money.
That's not particularly the case because there are other networks where there were folks who brought in ratings who got fired. So it's not particularly all about the ratings. We won't even.
Tom, there are no other networks that brought in ratings, but people got fired for bringing in ratings. except maybe Tucker Carlson.
Well,
He did have the number one rated
I
show.
think he was at the top of the ratings in his network, and I didn't even.
Yeah, he was number one rated show, and he did get fired.
And so there's someone
So there's an exception.
someone, Jimmy, who's so-called brought in ratings, he got fired.
But Fox News is the number one cable show on, so they can afford to fire their number one guy.
And he was the top of the top, and he got fired.
He wasn't top of the top, Tom.
I said he was towards the top of the top at Fox.
Who, Tucker?
Yeah,
yes. Okay. Yeah, you're right. He was the top guy at Fox. So that's the exception to the rule, Tom. But it's not the norm though that people who bring the ratings in and make the money get fired.
His show. So yeah.
Yeah, but that's not the norm, Tom. People who bring the money in don't get fired.
Well, he brought the money in, and he was the top of the food chain.
Tucker was not Lemonade.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, Lemonade.
And so
we can attribute to whatever statements he may have made.
At the end of the day,
but he didn't do his job, Tom.
Really, and for those of you,
$24 million will make up for whatever hardship he incurred from being fired.
What's that now?
I said, I'm sure the $24 million will make life comfortable for him and his husband. Any hardship he may have.
Don Lemon is 50-something some odd years old. So, I mean, hey, for what it's worth, he can do whatever the heck he wants to do. He's going to still be a journalist. He wants to do his own thing. I think probably on another show. I think he put some statements on Twitter, Jimmy. But
ain't nobody trying to hire Lemonade.
At this point in time, he doesn't have to do anything if he doesn't want to.
He doesn't have to now. And he doesn't have to then because he was fairly wealthy when they fired him.
Absolutely.
But the point is, Tom, nobody was knocking on the door to hire him after the CNN cut him loose. Like I said, he can't bring the ratings in. He couldn't help the morning show out. He got fired from that also. So we can move on from talking about Lemonade, but congratulations to him and his $24 million for being black. Tell me that black doesn't pay.
Well, Jimmy, I don't think that's the issue. I think you probably know, and we know that it wasn't because he was black, because there are some other folks on there who are black who don't get it.
I don't know that, Tom. That's exactly why he was paid.
There's some other folks, Jimmy. There's some other folks on CNN who are black.
The DEI hired Tom. He didn't bring the ratings in, and yet he walks out with $24 million.
I understand, Jimmy, but he's not the only person who happens to be black who's on CNN who doesn't get paid that type of money. It doesn't have anything to do with just because he is black. There are other folks on CNN who don't get paid that type of money.
Yeah, Tom, and once again, he was a DEI hire. He was only in that slot because he was black. If he was white, they would have fired him a long time ago. And he wouldn't be walking out the door with $24 million.
Because he was black.
He would not be walking out the door with $24 million if he was white.
Okay, Jimmy.
So this was a DEI hire, diversity hire. He didn't do his job.
Lasted, Jimmy, a DEI hire that lasted 17 years? I don't think so. No.
Yes.
A DEI hire isn't going to last 17 years just because he's
Oh, sure they will, Tom. When you need a black person to cover for you, when you claim that you are a station of diversity, you're losing money hand over fist in an industry that you pioneered.
We're talking about privilege because of skin color. Jimmy, you invented privilege because of skin color. It wasn't Don Lemon.
I didn't say he invented. Who said that? You said that.
But you said he was a DEI, which the implication is
he was a DEI hire. Tom, listen, Tom. The guy had very little skills. He was not very good at bringing the ratings in. The only reason he was on CNN in that slot is because he was black. If he was white, they would have fired him a long time ago. His blackness covered for him. Don Lemonhead was not a very good journalist. He did not bring the ratings in. His topics were idiotic. He was a borderline imbecile himself with his viewpoints.
Are you trying to distinguish between him being a good journalist or him getting paid?
I'm saying that he was not a very good journalist. I watched the guy.
Being a good journalist.
His topics were not very good. Tommy was an imbecile.
He doesn't, Jimmy. If you've been in mass media, you don't particularly always determine the topics. Anyone,
Tom, this guy said the flight from 370
determined what
he attributes the missing airline from flight from 370. This is one of the idiotic things he said. The missing flight from 370.
Okay, let's not get into idiotic things that people say, Jimmy, because there's a whole bunch going on
Tom,
every now.
okay, now you open the door. Now you don't want me to walk through it.
No, what I'm saying is,
he said that this was because of aliens. This was the only stupid, idiotic thing that the man said.
We're not in the business of talking about who's making idiotic statements. Jimmy.
I am. What are you talking about? We're not. Yes, I am, Tom. I'm very opinionated.
Jimmy, if we go on
we can move on, Tom.
Major news channel, there's plenty of idiotic, patently false statements being made.
There are plenty of people. So what? That doesn't justify him just because he's one. You make it seem like just because other folks are idiotic, that it's okay.
I never said
we're talking about Lemonhead. Now you want to talk about the whole industry.
You're saying that Don Lemon has a monopoly on making idiotic.
I didn't say that at all, Tom. I just said he was an imbecile. I didn't say he had a monopoly on it. I didn't say he was the only one. I just said he was an imbecile.
Well, then well, then if that's the case, there's a bunch of imbecile calling going on.
Okay, I agree with you. So point made. We agree on that one.
It's not whether you agree with his politics or what he says, Jimmy. That's not even the emphasis of the story.
Tom, okay, I'm going to say this once again, so listen to me carefully. He was a DEI hire. He was affirmative action hire. He was only there because he was black. If he was white, they would have fired him a long time ago. They finally got to the point where even his blackness couldn't make up for him being incompetent. He didn't bring the ratings in. At some point, it's got to be about money because that's what they're in the business of. CNN got sold because they lost so much money. So the new owners didn't want to carry over the same affirmative action policy. That's why he was fired. Everybody knew he was not a very good journalist. So, I mean, it's about money, Tom. At some point, somebody, the new owners at CNN came to their senses that we can't pay people just because he's black and he's not good. If you can't bring the ratings in, we can't make the money, you got to go. So I understand that. That's just the way the business is. So him being fired, him being hired and him being black did more for him than his skills as a journalist. So let's cover the next story.
And when it comes to journalism, Jenny, it comes down to how many lies and how much drama you can bring to the table.
It comes down to how much money you can make, Tom.
And Jimmy, that is what brings
the ratings. A lot to bring the ratings in. That's what people want to hear.
How much drama you can bring to the stage, and that's what gets
right. So if you bring the ratings in, fine.
If you bring enough drama and tell enough lies, then that brings up your ratings because that gets the
Tom, if that brings the ratings in, you make money for the that's fine.
And that is the as what media it is what it is. But don't blame him in particular for.
Tom, why are you trying to once again, you're defending blackness, incompetent blackness in the name of blackness.
Don Lemon. I didn't even.
You are, Tom.
Lemon, but that wasn't even.
That's exactly what you're doing. The man was very incompetent at his job. He's defending in the name of blackness. No one said he was the only incompetent journalist.
Defending is the fact that you're saying that the man.
I said what I said. Tom, don't attribute
it. But it doesn't have to be true.
Okay, Tom, you said you agree with me that the industry as a whole is
okay.
There are a bunch of imbeciles, but not Don Lemon, is what you're saying.
No, I'm not saying there's a bunch of imbeciles out there, and I'm not calling them.
Okay, so we agree there's a bunch of imbeciles. And now I'm saying Don Lemon was an imbecile.
You called Don Lemon an imbecile. I did.
That's why I called him imbecile.
You got a right. You got a right to your opinion. It doesn't have to be
right. And so what do we disagree
at? Saying that he is a DEI hire doesn't mean that it has to be true.
Okay, that's my opinion. Exactly. So that's how I said it.
Exactly. That's fine. That's what I'm trying to say.
So what's the defense here? The imbecile journalist who can't bring the ratings in got fired because the new owners couldn't afford his $5 million salary, didn't want to pay anymore. Where am I missing a boat here, Tom? He got fired. If the new owners at CNN was making money with Don Lemonhead, they wouldn't have moved him to the morning slot. They would have left him right there in that prime slot if he was making money with them. What have I said that's wrong? He didn't do his job. They fired
Everybody
him.
Has the right to an opinion, Jim. So be it.
What opinion, Tom? That's not an opinion. That's a fact. What part of what I just said was an opinion? Did he not lose? Did he not get moved from a prime time slot to a morning slot?
That he did.
Okay, did CNN not get sold to new owners because they were losing money?
CNN got
Did the new owner not want to pay his $5 million salary for the low ratings that he was bringing in? What part of that is not fact?
the
All that is
part that I'm contesting is fact is that the only reason he was on there is because he was DEI. The one I'm contesting on there is that he was there 17 years, but he was a horrible journalist.
Point taken that you don't think he was a DEI hire, but you agree with everything else
No,
I said.
I'm not agreeing with everything that you said. I'm just letting you speak your piece, Jimmy. I'm just letting you speak your piece. Everybody
okay. Okay, Clarence Thomas. I mean, I'm not Clarence Thomas.
Don't
Clarence Bradley.
Don't.
Okay, Clarence Bradley.
Now, if you want to talk about a DEA hire, we can talk about Clarence Thomas. We can talk about that one.
Okay.
You want to talk about Clarence Thomas and a DEI hire, or maybe
yeah.
All right.
Okay, so
let's go.
So one black man died, another black man replaced him.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was a DEI hire. No argument there.
Uncle Clarence Thomas, yeah.
Okay.
About a DEI hire.
So yes, he replaced another black man that was in his spot before him.
Plus, the one that was before him was not a DEI hire.
No one said anything about Thurgood Marshall. Yeah, I thought you were talking about Clarence Thomas, but okay.
No, we were talking about Clarence Thomas being a DEI hire. We were not talking about Thurgood Marshall.
And okay, so he replaced another black person because he was black. Okay, it's great to be black sometimes. And all I'm saying is nothing.
In what world?
Tom, you just mentioned Clarence Thomas.
In the United States.
Okay, so if he was hired because he was black, and I just mentioned that, I just said, okay, sometimes it is good to be black, and now you're arguing against that too. Are you just in the argument the whole time? You made the point he was DEI, and I agree with you, and now you're backtracking even on your statement.
No, I'm not.
Where's Uncle Saul?
What I'm going to suggest is this. If a person is on even what you consider to be a second or third rate national news syndicate for 17 years, and you suggesting that the only reason he was hired in the first place was he was DEI, and he was a horrible journalist, but he was actually performing. There was a lot of other folks that were hired and fired in 17 years. Not all of them were black.
You missed what I said for looking at the trees. So you missed the forest for looking at the trees. Here I'm going to say it once again. Not that he was hired because he was DEI.
You said he was a DEI.
I said the only reason he was there. The only reason he was there, I said if he was white, he would have been fired a long time ago. Okay? So the only reason he was there is because of DEI. And that's why that network was losing money. The ratings were in the tank. They were pissed for industry that they pioneered, Tom. There was no cable news until CNN invented it. And so for industry that they pioneer.
What you're saying then is that Al Sharpton is a great journalist. Because the last time I checked, Al Sharpton is still on CNN, so he must be a great journalist.
Yes, Tom, another one is only on MSNBC, another network that's losing to Fox, that's barely making money, that got people like Rachel Madcow, Mad Brain Madcow, tenfold hat, conspiracy hat wearing Madcow. But yes, that network that hires Al Sharpton, that's what you're going to use in defense, Tom? Al Sharpton? That bumblehead can't get two words out of his mouth correctly? Al Sharpton? Come on, Tom. As if Al Sharpton's a serious news journalist. That bumblehead.
Well,
so yes, he's another one that if he was white, he would have lost his job a long time ago.
Obviously, if he was there, if what you're saying is the only reason he hasn't been fired. Okay, I got you. We'll talk to him about
that. Because he's black. We know that. It's good to be black sometimes.
It's because he's Al Sharpton. That's the reason.
He's good. It's good to be black sometimes, Tom.
No, it's good.
So sometimes black can come in your favor.
There are other black journalists who have been hired and fired during that period of time.
Al Sharpton loses his job today. Nobody's going to be knocking on his door to hire him. Just like Lemonhead. Nobody was knocking on his door and CNN fired him. That lets you know there's no market for you and your skills and your talent that you bring to television. It's about money, Tom. They don't. Al Sharpton is tolerated.
And stop right there.
When last time you watched the show?
We can disagree on most of this, but that one thing we will definitely agree on. It is all about money.
Period. It is about money,
regardless of what. Because what we see is not news.
It doesn't matter, Tom. Your boss don't care. You work for someone. Your bosses care, and the people who own the station or the business, all they care about is making
Of
money,
course,
Tom.
ratings. That's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter that it's not news. It's just as long as you bring in money.
And when the
And
last time, I'm going to put you on the spot, Tom. When the last time you watched that ass backwards show, Politics Nation? Don't even
I
make
just,
any sense, the title of
but
it,
see,
to start with.
but see, I'm the wrong person to ask Jim because, quite frankly, I
Okay,
rarely watch television. So I'm the
I
wrong
prove my point. Nobody watches that show.
No,
Look at the
no.
ratings for
I don't
Politics
watch the
Nation.
other shows either. Is the point?
Okay, but it's not just you, Tom.
Because
If you want to,
what you're watching,
if you want to, Tom, we can follow up next week on the show, and we can go get the ratings for Lemonhead
oh,
and for Al Sharpton and
I'm
show
not
what they
disagreeing
were.
with you. I'm not disagreeing with you about
Okay.
the rating. We can agree on that. We definitely can agree on that.
In fact, I think more people watch Black Men Speak than they do Politics Nation. And we're not even a national broadcast, but if we were, I think we could bring in better ratings than Al did. Al does. I'm sorry. Anyway, what's our next story, Tom? We spent all this time on these two
That's
bubbleheads.
because you were talking too long, Jimmy.
You know we're not going to have any shorts out of this.
All right, our next story.
What's our next story?
Black girl magic, Jimmy. Thank God. Fisk University gymnast Morgan Price recently set a new record for herself and Fisk University when she scored a 39.275, helping her place second in the gymnastics meet recently in Bowling Green. Price's outstanding performance on the balancing beam earned her a 9.95, resulting in the second place at the meet. Jimmy, this young lady is absolutely amazing. She earned the highest ever score recorded by an HBCU gymnast. In 2023, she made history as the first, in 2023, Fisk made the history as the first historically black college and university to compete in NCAA gymnastics, which is something I did not know. Fisk having made its debut in January of 2023 in the inaugural Super 16 event in Las Vegas. Price, who competed, recorded the highest vault score of the meet with an incredible 9.9, supported by an almost flawless landing. In 2022, she actually made headlines, and she had actually committed to the University of Arkansas. She was a prodigy in gymnastics, started at the tender age of 2, and she was a five-star college recruit. She decommitted from Arkansas and went to Fisk after they declared that they were going to start the first gymnastics team among HBCUs. So this young lady, Jimmy, you're going to probably have to watch out for her in the upcoming Olympics. And Jimmy, actually from Capel, Texas, which is not too far from where you are, Jimmy.
That's correct, Tom, up here in Collin County. What's wrong with this picture, Tom, when we see HBCUs participating in swimming, now gymnastics, diving, and making headways and competing effectively in the Division I categories. So we can't say that there are certain sports that we don't compete in. We put our minds to it. There's nothing that we can't do. And so there's no reason in sports or anything else, academics or any discipline there is, to say that we can't compete with others academically, physically, or in sports, no matter what it is. So we need to get rid of the foolishness about believing that there are certain things that are not for us. Anything that we decide to put our minds to and decide to go after is for us. So congratulations to this young lady. And once again, Tom, we just continue to showcase black kids and black students doing remarkable things when they decide to put their minds to it and do it. So I'm glad that she didn't believe that gymnastics is not for black young ladies and decided to take this. I'm glad the school decided to even field the team. We see more and more HBCUs getting into sports that generally you don't see them participating in. So I am happy. Continue to push forward until all the disciplines and all the sports are filled out and you're competing across the board.
Well, Jimmy, you're correct. And one of the challenges that practically all of our HBCUs are having and why we don't have more kids who are participating in these sports is very simple: funding. They don't have access to, of course, a lot of the capital that a lot of the other mainstream state schools, of course, have. In addition to that, unfortunately, a lot of the state governments, as we have seen in the past, they've held back funding from historically black colleges and universities for decades upon, over a century,
Tom,
and they're
where
and they're
where
just
is the black? Where's the alumni money
Jimmy.
when you only have
I
100,
understand, but
104?
let's be very clear. When it comes to sports funding,
I don't know. What was the answer, Tom?
if you let me finish,
Go ahead.
alumni funding is a segment, of course, the endowment of any university, whether it's a large state school or a small private school. But it does not compare to the hundreds of millions of dollars that have not been rolled over to historically black colleges and universities throughout several decades since the Reconstruction period. And so, yes, I would agree with you when you talk about some of the lack of support from alumni, which all schools to a certain degree have to deal with. But at the end of the day, Jimmy, most of historically black colleges and universities don't have the stretch of sports teams and other institutions that other institutions have, Jimmy, because quite frankly, they don't have the resources. Part of that has to do with the large part. I mean, part of it has to do, of course, with alumni support, but a much larger part of that has to do with state funding that has been held for decades.
Tom, we talked about the coach down Jackson State, Deion
Yeah,
Sanders, when he left.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Coach,
Deion Sanders had to reach out to get additional funding to improve the cafeteria, to improve the uniforms and the program for his football players. Hell, he had to reach out to Home Depot
correct.
to get a football field put in. And so some of it is funding, like you said, but some of it, Tom, is we can't do outreach. Is Deion Sanders the only one that can call Home Depot and say, hey, can you help us out here? Well, do you have any extra grass left over that you could donate to our program? Can we not ask? And we have 104 HBCUs, Tom, who graduate half of the black professionals in America.
Correct.
And you're telling me that we somehow can't give back to and support 100 HBCUs?
And many of
Half the black
and,
graduates
and, many,
can't.
and many of the alumni do, Jimmy. So you can't make a pen.
They do, Tom, but we know they're drastically
Of
inadequate.
course,
And then on top of that, Tom,
by design.
okay, by design. So you're absolutely correct. So I'm going to bring this full circle now. Back with I'm going to continue to say this about vote not interest. Obama, president, the first black president, cut funding for HBCU to give the Latino schools. That's not me saying that. That's on record. Google it and use the internet for something more than porn. The current administration cut funding for HBCUs once again to low levels. Tom, why is it
Jimmy,
that Republican presidents like Reagan and the Orange Man are the ones that have to put, and Bush had to put money in and fund HBCUs at higher levels than the Democrat presidents? So we talk about funding, but yet we don't vote our interest. We vote for people who cut funding for HBCUs constantly. And this is still going on. The 10-year guaranteed money plus index to inflation that the Orange Man put in for HBCUs, got cut out the first thing he did when the new administration came in. But yet, who put that administration in office? Black people did. The Congressional Black Sellout Caucus, who said they were not going to vote for the new funding bill because it took money away from HBCUs, I knew they were going to cave in the end. They did cave in the end, Tom. So we don't vote our interest, we don't contribute to the schools, but somehow we complain about the funding for HBCUs as if we're really concerned about it. I can't tell that we are concerned about it. To be honest, it's just lip service to me. Until we start speaking up for black schools, inner city schools, for HBCUs, for our kids, and for ourselves, I'm not convinced that we have a self-interest in looking out for black interests. That's just my point. So the proof is in the pudding, Tom. So we can talk about it to all we want. We can take it to Del Monte and can it, but we're not doing what self-interested people should do, which is speak for our interests, vote our interests, and protect our interests. We don't do it, Tom.
Okay, Jimmy.
But go ahead.
I'm not going to spend.
I've said my piece.
I'm not going to commit the 5 minutes that you just committed. What I'm going to ask folks to do. Do your research. How much money was committed from the Orange Man's administration to HBCU? And then also go back and research how much money was committed from Joe Biden's administration to HBCUs. Don't believe me. Just do the research, come up with the results,
Okay.
and we'll keep moving.
I would tell you, Tom, that if you pose the question that way, you're correct.
How much money was given by the last administration?
Okay,
How much
so
money was given by this administration?
okay, the Biden administration overall spending money
On
put there by Republicans.
HBCU specific.
Right, on HBCUs alone, money put there restored by Republican Congress that fought to put the money there. But if you go look at the proposed budget from the administration, look at what Jim Crow Joe Biden submitted to Congress as funding levels for HBCUs. That money was cut. So don't look at what was allocated, because the money that was allocated was put there not by Jim Crow Joe, John. So you're being disingenuous,
I'm not being
Tommy.
Like you said,
we're talking about an administration that does not look out for black people.
Okay, Jimmy.
So this administration, every budget, Tom, submits a budget for but money in HBCUs is cut. Now the good thing is that Republicans in Congress don't go along with it, because if they did, if Republicans were as racist as y'all claim we are, then HBCUs would be out of business. The only reason HBCUs continue to exist on federal funding is not because of Democrats. The money that protect that the group that looks out for them is Republicans. So that's what you go research and look up if you want to be fair and honest. Don't look at what Republicans put in there. Look at what Jim Crow Joe recommended spending levels for HBCUs. Look what Obama submitted for HBCUs. Look how he transferred money to Latino schools away from HBCUs.
At the end of the day, you're taking it to one president versus another.
Okay, I am.
How much money
because that's what we have to vote for. Tom is one president.
We don't have to spend a lot of time on it. Okay, what administration? How much money they get? Next administration, how much money they get? Do the research. That's it.
Okay. Well, you know what? If you think the Dems are good for black people, black schools, then continue to vote for them.
I'm not saying
vote your. We tell people all the time to vote your interest.
Since you attributed all this money that the former president gave, fine. How much came during the last administration? How much came during the current administration? It's just do the math. That's all.
Is that simple? Okay. It is that simple, Tom.
You do say results, right? You do say results, right?
I'm sorry?
At the end of the day, either they did or they didn't get money. Or how much money did they get? Is that not what matters, or is that what does matter? How much money they got?
Yes, and it does matter how they got the money and who provided for them, Tom. And so it wasn't administration.
Your statement was under the last administration.
Correct.
And so
but I said the orange man.
Your statement was Jim Crow Joe. All that money got cut. Okay, then that's saying, okay, they got no money.
They didn't, Tom, come on. See, you go to all extreme things.
Yes, what happened during the last administration? What happened during the current administration?
What happened during the last administration is that they got funding for the next 10 years, so they wouldn't have to come to Congress every year and beg for money.
Fine.
That's what happened. Okay, this administration cut that out immediately.
Okay.
So now they got to come back to Congress every year and beg for money. And they don't know, they can't plan long term for what they're going to build, a parking lot or a school or a building, because they don't know what they're going to get next year. Every year they have to come back on their knees begging for money. So this is the difference between approaches. The orange man looked at it and said, what do you, not that we don't want you here, but what do you hear every year begging for money for? And once he understood, he was like, okay, I can fix this. Here's funding for the next 10 years that you can budget for, you can count on, and it's indexed for inflation. So here, now you're good. You can go grow your colleges, grow your universities. And to cut that money out, Tom, when you're talking $32 billion over 10 years, we're talking $54 billion he promised to Africa and hadn't delivered a penny. And so we continue to talk about our interest and vote in our interest.
That Donald Trump now loves Africa?
I didn't say anything to that. I said what I said, Tom.
Okay.
I said money that was pledged to Africa hadn't been delivered.
Okay, that's fine.
So Trump didn't pledge $54 billion to Africa.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
He
didn't pledge nothing. He called him shithole.
So you're gonna hold him to the person who did pledge it. We don't blame that person. We make excuses for that person.
No,
but the person who didn't
nobody's making excuses.
But the person who did something for HBCUs And one of the stories that we're talking about is VC money for businesses, which a
If
lot of
we
that
can
money
get
came
to
from
it,
the
Jimmy,
enterprise zone. Huh?
if we can get to it.
Let's get to it because that's a political implication also.
Okay.
Let's get to it.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Vote your interest, people.
All right. Next story, Jimmy. This is the last Wednesday of February, so I did want to go through a couple of, Jimmy, historical businesses that have been around for over a century that are still operating. So I wanted to highlight these businesses. At the end of the day, Black history is American history. It's 365 days out of the year, but I found this pretty interesting article, Jimmy. So we're going to talk through a couple of these, Jimmy. First, as the United States experiences a boom in Black-owned business, which we've talked about many times on this show, we want to go out and highlight some Black-owned businesses that have been around, folks, since our grandparents and great-grandparents have been around. First, we'd like to highlight McKissick and McKissick, founded in 1905, Jimmy. Moses McKissick III and his brother Calvin L. McKissick are the grandsons of a slave who shared his building skills with his family and two brothers who went on to start their own architecture firms in Nashville, Tennessee. The company made history in 1942 when the U.S. awarded it a $5.7 million contract worth nearly $90 million today to build the 99th Pursuit Squadron Air Base in Tuskegee, Alabama. At the time, this was the largest federal contract given to a Black-owned business. McKissick and McKissick celebrated its 100th birthday of their founders, becoming one of the first African-American licensed architects in the country. So,
okay.
Want to?
Is that the two brothers?
Absolutely. Next, we have W.H. Jefferson Funeral Home.
You sure you got the right photo this time?
Yes, this is the right photo. These are the two brothers here.
Okay.
Yeah, they're a little light-skinned, brother. They're a little bit light-skinned.
Yeah. I'm kind of looking. I'm on the screen a little bit. Like, is there some pigmentation I'm missing here or something, or what?
Well, you know, again, that, you know, fair skin got a little bit more privilege. You know, W.E.B. Du Bois was kind of a fair skinned brother as well. So, Jimmy, so they got into some doors some other folks could get into. There probably weren't a lot of dark-skinned brothers at Harvard, you know, back in the early 1900s, Jimmy. So, all that being said, next, W.H. Jefferson Funeral Home was founded in 1894. W.H. Jefferson isn't only the oldest Black-owned funeral home in Mississippi, it's one of the oldest in the country, Jimmy. Founded by William H. and Lucy C. Jefferson, the W.H. Jefferson Funeral Home is described as a pillar in Vicksburg, Mississippi. And that community, the current owner, James Jefferson Jr., also one of the first funeral homes to have two burial insurance companies as well. Jimmy, this funeral home has, Jesus, I mean, this is over 120, 135 years old, Jimmy. So that is an outstanding accomplishment. I mean, there are companies that can't stay in business a couple of years, and these folks have going on almost 140 years. So
I know that personally. I've had to close down a couple of businesses.
Absolutely. Next, we have the Philadelphia Tribune, founded in 1884, Jimmy. Some folks may have heard of the Philadelphia Tribune, one of the few Black, of course, newspapers and or media companies that are still out there. Christopher J. Perry was 28 when he got into the newspaper business. The Tribune started as the voice for the Black community during a time when African Americans struggled to be heard and got their stories told.
There's a print company?
Yes, this is a media company.
I mean, are they social media or are they digital media now?
This was the print media, Jimmy. I'm pretty sure they also do a Gazette today.
Okay.
But Perry did everything from sales reporting, and his work paid off when the publication finally took off. The Tribune paper helped Black Philadelphians find jobs during the Great Depression and exposed the racist practices of many generations during that point in time. Today, the Philadelphia Tribune has earned several awards for its stellar journalism and also publishes other newspapers as well. Covers national and global events while also continuing to report on local news in the Philadelphia area. So shout out.
Congratulations to him. Shout out for him.
To the Philadelphia Tribune. Next, Jimmy, we have the North Carolina Mutual Insurance Company, founded in 1998. John C. Merrick was born into slavery and was later freed after the Civil War. The entrepreneur worked as a bricklayer in Raleigh, North Carolina, and later also became a barber. He ended up opening several barbershops in Durham and making connections with rich white people during that time. After securing a loan from a wealthy tobacco industrial, he started the North Carolina Mutual and Provident Association for Black People, which was ignored by many other insurance companies at that time. Later rebranded as NC Mutual, this business continues to be a firm part of Durham's Black Wall Street district during that period of time.
Hey Tom, I think I ran across something that Magic Johnson had bought
Yes,
a black-owned insurance. Is this the same company?
Jim, I don't believe this one was it. I think that was I think that was one out of Georgia, but I'll have to
Okay,
double check for sure.
and they're still in business.
This one is NC Mutual is still in business.
Wow, congratulations to them. We don't happen to know how much money they have on their management
That
assets?
we do not. No, that I did not get the information on that. But that would be an interesting point. We'll have to go back and see if we can pick that up, Jim.
Well, I mean, if nothing else, Tom, I mean, if since we have these companies that exist out here, everyone needs insurance. If you have to go out and buy insurance, do your absolute best to find black-owned insurance companies to buy you insurance from, if you can. So let's do our best to support each other.
All right, and last but definitely not least, we have the E.E. Ward Moving and Storage Company, the oldest one of these, founded in 1881 and still in existence. As the oldest Black-owned business in the entire county in that area, E.E. Ward and Moving Company survived and thrived during the Reconstruction era, Jim Crow, segregation, and the Civil Rights Movement. John T. Ward, an Underground Railroad conductor, founded the business with his son William in Columbus, Ohio. The venture sprung up from an Underground Railroad stop with just 2 horses and a wagon. Very humble beginnings. Now it's a multi-million-dollar award-winning company led by a powerhouse couple, Brian and Dominique Brooks. E.E. Ward Moving and Storage became the first Black agent to receive the North American Van Lines Agent of the Year award in 2021, Jimmy. So imagine that. I think this is 140 moving company that is 140 plus some odd years old, if you do the math, because this is 2024. So I guess that's probably closer to 145 years old.
I'll tell them yes. That's a long lineage. But it just goes to show what can be done with some determination, some dumb luck, and some grit, and probably good business savvy. So
Jim,
it's not easy to stay alive when the business environment is changing on you. So discrimination, bad business trends, and somehow you find a way to stay afloat. I mean, that says a lot about you and your business. So congratulations to all these companies that are still in business. And also for people out there looking to start a business, just understand with some of the grit that these people had to go through to keep their business going. So no matter what the situation is, just keep fighting through it. And with any luck, you'll survive for 100 years the way they did.
true that, Jimmy. True that. Been through a lot. All right, Jimmy, we got a couple of more stories. I don't think really have enough time to really address both of them in spirit. Jimmy.
What do we have?
All right, first we have one that we, talked a lot about business and entrepreneurship, Jimmy. And, I found an interesting article. VC funding over the last couple of years has dropped. Of course, we know that a lot of companies made commitments, of course, after 2021 and the unfortunate public death of George Floyd to commit more funding to Black-owned businesses. But new data shows that venture funding for Black startups has plummeted significantly since 20 and 21. For the first time since 2016, Jimmy, venture capital funding in 2023, that is last year, fell below $1 billion to $705 million, according to tech research firm Crunchbase. The 71% VC funding decline for Black startups was much larger than the overall 30% drop in combined VC dollars in 2023 overall. During the peak year in 2021, 4.9, meaning almost $5 billion was invested into Black startups. The 2023 figure represents about an 80%, 86% drop since that high in 2021. Of course, those of you who are not in this space, VC funding is used to launch, expand, or scale and provide working capital to businesses so they can continue to grow and make money and, quite frankly, create new jobs for folks in their community. Black-owned women businesses, as we've talked about before, continue to grow, but have also struggled with VC funding as well. And we, of course, know that they are the fastest growing sector of businesses in the country right now. So,
okay, so Tom, we had a period where a government push for investments into inner cities, created 8,000 enterprise zones, encouraged private public funding, and money flew in. Now we have an environment, I'm not even going to say administration, since that offends some people. Now the environment is, don't invest in these areas. And so money is drying up and not going into these areas. And somehow we seem to be shocked and surprised. So all I can say is, once again, vote your interest. You keep thinking that this environment is good, is great, educationally, economically, then keep the people who run this environment in place. So, but if you're not happy with the way things are and the way they turned out, then if you have some buyer remorse, well, you know what? Come November, you have a chance to do something about it, especially at a time when the previous administration was looking at a $500 billion economic investment in the Black community, and somehow we trade that in for student loan relief that we didn't get, or very little of it. So, like I said, once again, vote your interest. What's our next story, Tom, since we already know what happened to the money and that this administration doesn't seem to be concerned about creating an environment where that money can flow into our area? Because once again, we know how much Jim Crow Joe loves us.
And I guess we can look at the results of that money that was put in those economic opportunity zones too and see the results of that, right?
Well, I mean, we had $80 billion that flew into it, Tom. So what happened to the $80 billion? That was $80 billion more than we had before those enterprise zones were created. So hopefully something good came of it.
And so what ultimately ends up happening in some of those areas is some folks get moved out and other folks get moved in and they become wealthy.
Well, what really happens, Tom, is if I invest my money into your area and then you set fire and burn my building down or my neighbor's building or the building around the street, yeah, I'm not going to be encouraged to invest more money into your area.
Yeah.
So
they need to be able to talk to the law enforcement and tell them to stop shooting unarmed folks.
I understand. We've talked about that. But some of the peaceful protests that existed, some of that people,
when they've had enough. People,
well, Tom, I'm just characterizing.
People don't protest for no reason.
Tom, this is how the news media characterized it to me. They said these were mostly peaceful protests. So when you have mostly peaceful protests, in your neighborhood, I guess that's maybe not an incentive for people to invest in those neighborhoods. Maybe they'll look at ways to take their money and put it someplace else. Well, maybe the protests are not so peaceful. I don't know. Hey, look, I'm not the person to ask because several of my businesses have gone under the last couple of years. I used to be a decent investor, but I can't say that anymore as I'm trying to rebound myself. But all I can say is if I were an active investor, I would try to find places where I think my money is safe to invest in.
Of course.
So,
of course. All right, Jimmy, very last story. A couple minutes. There was a video that went viral this past Sunday, Jimmy, someone that anyone who follows sports probably knows. In 2015, NFL MVP Cam Newton got involved in a scuffle at his 7-on-7 youth tournament in Atlanta, Georgia, which he is a native of. Newton, wearing one of his custom-made hats, is shown being shoved by three people near the top of a set of steps and shoving and grabbing moves towards until the grabbing moved towards the fence line. The altercation was broken up by police officers and event security personnel at the 7x7 tournament at Best Academy. Newton, of course, for those of you who don't know, was the #1 pick in the 2011 NFL draft from Auburn University, and does not appear to throw any punches for any. A lot of folks have seen this video. Didn't throw any punches, but in essence was trying to ward off the folks that were getting into a fight. There was a punch thrown at Newton, even though he didn't respond in kind with another punch. Newton from Atlanta runs C1N, an organization founded in 2021 that focuses on developing youth athletic skills in football, providing opportunities to compete at the highest level through 7-on-7 football tournaments. The organization's mission is to create an environment that fosters growth and development on and off the field. Newton's 15 and under team ended up winning the championship at the event. But really what this came down to, unfortunately, Jimmy, is, folks, and we've talked about this and we've talked about some articles back and forth. This is a guy who, folks may have their opinion about him in terms of his communication style, his dress, or whatever the case is. But this is one of the guys that doesn't really go out there and beat his chest about what he's doing. He's trying to invest in communities in a channel that he knows to try to help. And at the end of the day, stuff like this happens.
Tom, stuff like this just doesn't happen. But look, you mentioned the hats. I can mention the purse and the coats and the rest of the wardrobe. But yeah, I mean, he's trying.
And things like that's the point. He is trying.
And things like this do happen, Tom, but it's just, and maybe it's just highlighted when it happens to us and than our efforts. Maybe it happens more with other groups than what's highlighted and told. But anytime it happens to us and our group, it seems to get highlighted.
Of course.
So I would say this: everybody, turn off your damn cell phones when you go to our events, and so they don't get captured, so they can't go viral if no one has the video. So
well, that's not going to happen.
Anyway,
Tom, I mean, this is my thing. You can say what you will or may, but we have seen this multiple times. This is just the latest epic in the saga. That we talk about this a lot. You have a guy who has played at the highest level in a sport that a lot of these young people want to get to. And I'm not saying that folks don't let their emotions get the most of them at times. But you're talking about someone who does not have to invest his time, his money, his insight, his relationship, bringing other coaches, other recruiters, other players who have also played at the highest level to help pour into these young guys. And it's not even always the particular guys who are maybe out there competing, but it's the freaking parents sometimes and the coaches that are getting into this.
The worst of anything.
Jimmy, we talked about this last year when brother of Aqib, I can't pronounce his name, Talib, who was an NFL standout, his brother was a coach for one team, and then he ends up shooting and killing a coach for another team right here in our backyard in North Texas over a freaking football game. And this could have gone a lot worse. It's not a good look at all. Of course, things have changed because we have these mobile phones. But people ask, and we also talk about why folks don't do more in our communities. It's foolishness because you have too much to risk to put your name and your legacy when you see things like this. And unfortunately, Jimmy, this is probably why a lot of folks don't really put themselves out there like that, because there's just too much to lose.
Okay, Tom, I mean, it's a long, complicated topic.
It is.
And
I was hoping we had about 20 to 30 minutes, but we went too long earlier.
We're a little over. So this can spill over into next week if you like to talk about. But the point is, Tom, is that I believe that the reasonable people can come together and do reasonable things. And we all understand what we have to do as a group collectively, that we need to stimulate investments in our communities. We need to behave better, especially when other people's eyes are on us. We need to demonstrate, Tom, that we are intelligent people, reasonable people, law-abiding people, which most of us are. I mean, we're only talking about a very small subset of black people that, unfortunately, cast a blanket or an umbrella over all of us that we're having to deal with. Um, but that doesn't mean that we give up on doing what we can to make a difference. And when other people don't do, and I still say this, that us looking to the upper class black folks to get it done is not going to happen. So if we're going to turn this around, Tom, it's going to be people like the people in our audience who come into the watch this show. You and I, middle class black folks who are doing well, who have a few dollars that they can spare to do something and to use that money to do something positive with. Invest in a business, create a job, um, support a little league group, a nonprofit, anything that's going to do that's going to have positive results in your community or someone else's community that's in need are the things we should kind of focus on. You know, waiting for other people to somehow turn it around for us hadn't worked so far, but maybe it will work in the future. But I don't see it working today. I haven't seen it where it worked in the past. But what I have seen work historically is when we decide to come together and get things done, that we do it, we get it done. Just like these HBCUs who are deciding to enter into to sports areas that they historically been locked out of, when they made their mind to make that entry, and step into that arena, they've done quite well. So I have no doubt that we can do quite well if we decide collectively. I mean, it takes a lot of us. It can't be just you and me, Tom, or just a few people we know trying to make a difference. It can start there, but really, we need to have a Renaissance movement where collectively Black people decide to pool our resources, open our own bank if we have to, start our own investment firm. But we have to turn this thing around and whining and crying and waiting for someone to come save us hasn't worked. It's not going to work. And so we need to just give up on that pursuit.
Oh, I would definitely agree with you on that one. And I think there are several layers to what happened here. And again, I
Very complex.
I have a great deal of what Cam Newton has done, in his vocational pursuit and being an athlete from his time at Auburn University, or even prior to that, when he was at Blinn College and won, I think, a championship at that level, did the same thing at Auburn
Right.
University, took a team to the Super Bowl on his back, in the NFL, and doesn't have to, but continues to invest in the lives of wholesome youth.
I hope it continues,
And
Tom.
the reality of it is we've got to do a better job in terms of fostering a certain level of parenting and respect with our young people and our parents and our older folks. We've got to understand this is a game. There is a 1% of a 1% of a 1% chance, that your child, regardless of how talented he or she may be, that can get into professional sports. And even when they get there, they're only there for maybe 4.5 years. Of course, they get a pension.
That's why they call it NFL not for long.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, as parents, as caretakers, and folks who have responsibility, we've got to do better in terms of setting the right example, in terms of how we're walking, and then also making sure that the young people that they're around, because they are watching us and what we are doing. As adults, as parents, as coaches, we've got to do a better job in terms of how we are carrying ourselves as an example for these young people. And we've got to raise our young people to respect their elders. Not that they have to agree with everything, but at least
Right.
respect him, because some of the things that these guys who are well past the game are pouring into, they don't have to do that. We have to be a better job. And we know that there's just as much stuff going on the other side of the tracks. It just doesn't make the news because we don't determine what's making news.
But despite what goes on whatever side of the track, Tom, we need to take our own business. TCB, take care of business.
Absolutely.
Do what we have to do and not be focused on what other people are doing to justify what we're doing wrong. So we just need to focus on us doing right as best we can. But you're right. I agree with everything you just said. And so hopefully we can continue to be a catalyst here on Black Men Speak, our small audience and the people. Although our audience is growing, Tom, I saw the numbers for last month, and um, in addition to the people who watch the show, I mean, most of the people watch and tune in after the fact. So I believe we got over 100,000 views of our show last month. So um, we're well on pace to hit some good numbers this year. So let's just continue to push ahead and let's bring the information and news that hopefully our people can benefit from. I'm still saddened that we don't get more of our fans to tune in and chime in with some opinions, Tom. Like I said, this is, like we said, this is not just our show. This is a show for those who watch, and certainly for those who watch live, for you to offer your opinion and information and suggest topics that you want us to cover.
And I don't know, Jimmy, if they are still out at church on Wednesday nights during middle of the week.
Are we going against Bible study,
I
Tom? Are we competing against Bible study?
don't know if we still compete against Bible study or what, Jimmy, but either way, we're still going to be here. We're consistent, we're disciplined. And one of the things that I will say, when I do talk to folks, it's like, the one thing that I love about you guys, y'all are consistent. Y'all show up every week. Y'all come up with something interesting and keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, I forgot to ask you, Tom, do we have any birthdays for tomorrow for leap year?
That is a good.
This is a leap year, do we?
Yes, this is.
Do we have any
tomorrow
birthdays
the 29th? So yes.
I'm saying, did we feature any birthdays?
Not on tomorrow. I think it was Stephanie Mills was today, and then we have the celebrity birthdays of March the 1st and 2nd. We didn't have any for tomorrow on the 29th.
Okay. Well, for all you very special people who have a birthday tomorrow, happy birthday.
And we want to thank you for supporting us. We want to thank you for your continued support of Black Men Speak. Of course, we will be back next week. Thank you, everyone, and have a good week and weekend.